hello from me, Cam, and hello from Steve, the world's worst bobblehead cat. I mean, oh, hang on. It's not too bad. Come on, Steve. So this video is about buying the 2020 iMac. This is going to be my first brand new iMac purchase. In fact, it's going to be my first iMac purchase at all. I've had two MacBooks over my years, but they've both been refurbished, so I've never bought an actual Mac computer from new. I bought 3 refurbished iPhones as well, actually, so I've never bought one of those from new. The only new Apple products I've ever bought were a first-gen iPod Touch, which is obviously a long way back. And, I bought a second-gen iPad mini. I mean, I use it every day, but it's now essentially just an alarm clock to wake me up in the morning. So at least it's still useful for something. So cool. We're going to jump into the Apple education pricing, because I think a lot of people do have access to somebody who has education pricing. But if you don't, I'll put the normal prices up on the screen as well. So this year, in early August 2020, they updated the iMac to the iMac 2020 from the iMac 2019. But they only did that for the 27-inch. For the 21.5-inch, they've not updated anything at all, really. There is one small thing. They're still running 7th and 8th gen Intel processors in the 21.5 inches, so they're a few years old now. The one and only change they did make, and it's not worth buying it for this, is that the 256GB SSD is now a standard hard drive option on these, rather than the terrible Fusion drives, which are still an option on here, but it's not the standard option. So ignore the 21.5s, because they're likely to be replaced as well in either October 2020 or March 2021 are the rumours, and they're going to be replaced with Apple Silicon iMacs, which are going to be amazing. So let's have a look at the 27s. So the 27's got a few updates this year. They've gone to 10th generation Intel processors, so a nice little step up from 9th generation in last year's models. They've got a 1080p FaceTime camera rather than the 720p that the iMac's been rocking for years now. They've gone to 5000 series Radeon graphics cards, which is a nice little bump. It's got the RDNA architecture on those graphics cards, which is a nice little step up for video editors, and a few other different types of productivity users too. What else have we got? Oh, we've got the SSDs again. They're standard across the line now. There's no more Fusion drives. Thank you, Apple. Finally. We've also got a slightly faster SD card reader in the back of the iMac, which is actually a really nice upgrade, because obviously a lot of video editors use iMacs, and a lot of video editors take SD cards out of the cameras and pop them in the iMac. So with the 27-inch iMacs, we've got 3 options, or 3 tiers. The bottom tier starts at £1,600. Pounds. Again, I think it's roughly about the same in dollars for education pricing, and then I'll put the full price up on the screen. The first new thing we've got this year is this choice for standard glass or nano-texture glass, only on the 27s, and that's across all 3 tiers. Standard glass is your standard glossy, like you can see on a normal MacBook or any other iMac up until now. Nano-texture is what you can see on the Apple's Pro Display XDR. Apple etch into the display really tiny little lines that you can't see, so that it refracts the light in different ways, so it doesn't bounce back as one big reflection. It looks as like a really dull reflection of lights that you'll barely notice. But that is a £450 or dollar option. Through education, I think it's a £500 or dollar option through the normal pricing. So I'm not going to go for that when I buy mine in just a minute. The main reason is that the nano-texture glass is obviously a lot better than normal matte coated displays, because usually, like I said, it's a coating that manufacturers put onto the glass, and it reduces the contrast and the look and feel of this screen, whereas nano-texture glass doesn't do that as much, but it still does it a little bit, which is enough to make me think, you know what, I'm going to stick with the standard glossy glass, because the glossy glass looks really nice still as well. Going down, you got all your RAM options. We'll talk about those later on. You got a choice between gigabit Ethernet, which is your standard 1 gigabit Ethernet port, or 10 gigabit Ethernet. 10 gig Ethernet is good for anybody who wants to set up like a little NAS server or a home server or something and transfer files really quick. But if you've got no plans for that, consumer level internet is perfectly fine if you want to run that through your Ethernet cable into a gigabit Ethernet port. There's no real need for the 10 gigabit, although it is quite a cheap upgrade at £90 for education and £100 full priced. The one thing you have got to consider with this is that it does affect your resale market. And there are some people who do want to have a NAS server or have a NAS server when they're looking at buying a used iMac later down the line, and you're thinking of selling it to them, and they will want that option. But it's whether you think that's worth the extra money now to give your iMac a little bit more saleability in the future. And that's it for the base tier. Now what we have here is we've got no option to upgrade the graphics card, and we've got no option to upgrade the processor, which is a 6-core i5 running at 3.1 gigahertz with turbo up to 4.5. But the main thing that's a real shame with this bottom tier is that there's no opportunity to upgrade the SSD. You're stuck at 256 gigabytes, which in my opinion is just not enough. I mean, there's iPhones, the iPhone that I'm recording this on now has 256 gigabytes of storage. So to have an iMac that tops out there is just not enough. So if we look back at the tier system again, the middle tier is not that much of a jump in price from the bottom to the middle, but the middle tier gives you the same graphics card, so you don't get an upgrade there, but you do get double the amount of storage at 512 gigabytes. I think you can live with that. It's not amazing, but this MacBook here has got 512 gigabytes, and I'm managing okay with that. That's absolutely fine. By going to the middle tier as well, you do get a little bit faster processor. It's still a 6-core i5, so you now get a 3.3 gigahertz processor with turbo up to 4.8, rather than that bottom tier which got a 3.1 with turbo up to 4.5. So you can see what Apple are doing here with this middle tier. The bottom tier is really just to lure people in, looking at that nice low price, and then they look at the small difference between the bottom tier and the middle tier and they think, you know what, that's kind of worth it. But if you are like myself and you're a video editor, or you are doing, a few other different productivity tasks, the top tier is for you. The reason the top tier is for you is because you get a choice of different processors. The processors start at i7, you can choose an i9, and you get a choice of 3 different types of graphics card. So, when I have a look here, we've still got this same options, standard or nano-texture, so I'm sticking with standard. The processor, you've got your 3.8 gigahertz 8-core, so that's 3.8 gigahertz per core 8 times over, or you've got a 3.6 gigahertz processor, which is obviously slightly slower, but it's over 10 cores, so you've got 10 cores running at 3.6 gigahertz, so overall the 10 core is obviously the better option, but it's also on education a £360 or dollar option. And for video editing, you're not going to benefit from those extra cores that much. Now, we've got to the RAM portion of this video. Let's have a look at the RAM pricing on apple.com. And wow, it's expensive. So to upgrade from the standard 8GB of RAM, which isn't enough, I'm sorry Apple, but the top tier 27-inch iMac should start with 16GB of RAM. That's just how it should be. But looking at the prices, to upgrade to 16GB it's 180, to upgrade to 32GB it's 540, to upgrade to 64 it's £900 or dollars, but to upgrade to 128GB of RAM, which is something that you've never been able to do on a standard iMac before until this year, that is £2,340 or dollars. Whoa! So for context, I'm going to upgrade this to 64 once I have received it, which is a £900 option here. So I'm just going to order it with 8GB because that doesn't cost anything, and just pay between £200 and £250 for 64GB of RAM. That's a huge difference to £900, and that's why you can fit RAM yourself in the iMac very easily, and that's something not to be taken for granted, because it's rumoured that the new iMacs, when they come out with the redesign and Apple Silicon and all that sort of thing, they're going to make them even thinner. By making them thinner, they're very, very likely to solder the RAM onto the motherboards and make you pay every single penny for that. This is where things get interesting with the graphics cards. So it starts off at a 5500 XT with 8GB of GDDR6 memory on board. Very capable graphics card, but what I'm really interested in is the Radeon Pro 5700 XT. So that has 16GB of VRAM on board, which is the only one of the 3 graphics cards on option which offers 16GB of VRAM. And that will give you some killer video editing performance, which is why I'm going for that. If you're just doing things like photo editing, which is more RAM intensive, it's probably not the upgrade for you. If you're doing gaming, that's definitely the upgrade for you, but you know, largely speaking, people don't buy an iMac to game on it, they buy a Windows computer for gaming. Moving on from graphics, we're going to go to the storage. We've already spoken about the 512GB SSD that you can get in the second tier, and that's where the SSDs start here in the top tier as well. I think it's worth it to upgrade to the terabyte of SSD storage, even though it's £180 or dollars in education pricing. I'm going to go for it. On Amazon, you can buy external hard drives for less than that with a terabyte of storage, but to have it internally is just good. I would love to go for the 2TB option, but for another £360 on top of the 180 that we've already spent to get to the 1TB, that's just too rich for me. Next we get to the Ethernet. Like I said before, I'm going to stick to the gigabit Ethernet because I don't plan to get a NAS server or anything like that. Now we've got to the mouse and trackpad options, and I've got a little bit of a trick for you here. So I actually want the Magic Trackpad and the Magic Mouse, because I think the trackpad's really good for video editing, but I like the mouse just for usual normal computer use. So if you buy the Magic Mouse 2, that doesn't cost you anything. If you click the Magic Trackpad 2 option, that's £45.60 or $45.60, I guess, roughly around there. Okay, so we've got the Magic Trackpad in the basket. For an extra £70.80, you can add the Magic Mouse 2 as well. But on Amazon right now, I know in the UK, I assume pricing reflects over in the US as well, but the Magic Mouse is only £59. So it's actually cheaper to get a Magic Mouse separately. And the other part of this trick is that if you buy the 3 of them, the keyboard, the mouse and trackpad bundled together here, this option at the top, then you get one Lightning to USB cable to share between all 3. Whereas if you order the keyboard and either the mouse or the trackpad together here, and then buy either the mouse or the trackpad separately, you get 2 cables, one with the one that you bought separately and one that's shared between the keyboard and other periphery that you bought on the Apple site. So that's just a little trick to get an extra cable and save you a few pounds or dollars at the same time. Going down to keyboards, you can change the keyboard to the keyboard with extended numeric keypad. That's not something I'm going to go for. In all of my time using keyboards with a numpad, I just never use them, and it ends up where I got this keyboard where this section is used all the time and the other section is like essentially covered in dust because I just never use it. Plus it's more for your wrist to reach over to get to the mouse or trackpad, and it's more space taken up on your desk. Although it's a nice flex to have to say, yeah, I've got the top Apple keyboard, it's not a flex I'm willing to pay for because it's just going to be a waste of space on my desk, which, you know, it's not the biggest desk in the first place. It leaves us with the pre-installed software option, where you can go for the Pro Apps bundle for education. And if I click learn more about that, it tells you get Final Cut Pro, Motion 5, Compressor, Logic and Main Stage, all for £180, and it's assigned to your Apple ID, so you can actually install it on my MacBook, on my iMac, any other future Macs I buy, and it's less than what I would have paid on the macOS store anyway. You can buy this bundle without buying an iMac, and I think that costs £200 or dollars. Let's check all of our options. We've gone for the standard glass, we've gone for the 8-core 10th gen i7 processor, we've gone for standard RAM at 8GB, I'm going to buy my own. We've gone for the Radeon Pro 5700 XT with the 16GB of VRAM, can't wait to use that. 1TB of SSD, standard Ethernet port, gigabit Ethernet, Magic Trackpad 2, normal keyboard and the Pro Apps bundle for education. So Apple are running a back to school offer where you get a free pair of AirPods with any Mac or iPad purchase, as well as the extra discounts that you get from buying through Apple Education. So that's a pretty cool deal. So let's hit continue. And this is where you get to your AirPods options. So this is a big purchase, it's an exciting purchase, and hopefully I'm going to be able to edit some fantastic videos with some cool effects and colours and whatnot. So I'm going to check out, and I will see you when the AirPods turn up, when the Magic Mouse that I buy separately turns up, and of course when the iMac turns up. Ciao, have a good day, see ya, bye.